Welcome to the Golf Fitness Bomb Squad. I'm your host, Chris Finn, and today we have a guest from overseas. He's not in the U.S., and it's exciting for me when we get somebody international on the podcast. I am very excited to have Julien Raya with me. You may have seen him on his social media, Golf Player Secrets. Very big on Instagram. Definitely go check that out. He played collegiate golf. He's got a bachelor in psychology. He is a +2, so he will kick your butt on the golf course. But really, ultimately, the passion for helping golfers, just achieve their full potential. And he's a mental golf type certified coach. So we're going to be talking about the brain, the mind, how it's screwing you up today. Obviously, we'll talk about some intertwining to the physical side. But Julien, super excited to have you on, man.
Well, thank you so much. Thanks for the great introduction, and super happy to be on this podcast with you today. So I'm excited to dive in, and thank you for the opportunity.
Yeah, for sure, man. So I guess I'm as an entrepreneur, and I'm always very interested in the origins of people and how they get to where they are. And you obviously were a very accomplished junior golfer based on the research I did. How do you go from playing the game at a high level junior to now, coaching people on the mental side and helping people in their game? Like, what is that journey like? How did you get to where you are now?
Yeah, absolutely. So actually, I always was very intrigued with the mental side of things, and I got into it because it was the worst part of my game as a junior golfer, and even into my collegiate career. So it was definitely the worst part. I was the type of golfer, my coaches would tell me, with a swing like this, you shouldn't be ever shooting over par, and I was telling them, like, yo, please tell me how. I would love to know. But so, type of golfer that plays great in practice rounds, plays great when there is low pressure, but when it's into the moment, when things get serious, always felt like I was playing below my potential. So that's how I got into coaching. Actually, I never really wanted to turn pro. Obviously, when you're a little kid, you dream of that life. Then as I grew up, I realized how the sacrifices and what it actually takes to become a professional golfer. So I went the coaching journey.
Yeah.
And so that's how I ended up here, because I struggled and I wanted to get better and learn things from really learn as much as I could, and now I try to give that to players that are in similar situations.
Yeah, it's fascinating. You bring up the playing like practice rounds and the low pressure rounds, and it hit me when you said people tell you with a swing like this you should never shoot over par. We were just talking the other day. I had one of our members in here in the facility, and we were talking about different swings and players that we have on tour, and other ones that haven't made it. And he was talking about just watching some of the ones swing, and I told him, I said, look, I've had some people in here. I had a girl in here who was by far and away the best athlete we've ever tested athletically. You look at her swing, it's like textbook perfect, but she never kind of made it, right? And but I always joke, I said, you're gonna have to tell me this is totally not the right type of testing to do. But whenever we get a good player in, I don't coach as much as I used to, but I used to take my younger players, and I just wanted to see kind of like what kind of grit, or if they would, to your point of how much of a grind it is. I would put sleds out on the turf, and I'd have an empty one on one side and a full one on the other. And I would say, all right, push the light one down, and then push the heavy one back, and then you can walk back, get the light one, and then go. And they say, well, how many? And I'd say, till I say you're done. And the only people that I've had to tell 4 people to stop because they were pushing from their knees, or like bloodied, like knees were bloodied. Everyone else stops, but they keep going, and all 4 of them play professional golf, PGA or LPGA Tour. I always thought that was very interesting. It's very crude, and I'm sure no way near the scientific level that you do. But I think people can resonate with that. They play well in the practice rounds, they suck when it goes to the member guest or the member or the club championship. Or why is that? Like, what have you found as you've kind of gone through your journey?
Well, to keep it simple, like the biggest thing is, and it always comes down to this, is just stress management. And there is a bunch of golfers out there that they don't know because they don't know any better, but they poorly manage stress, and they don't even realize at some point that they're shifting from like their best peak performance mode into stress. And in golf, it's not like there is our life are at stake, so it's very like little subtle stress symptoms that accumulated over a period of time, or like a 2 or 3 days event, or 4 days event, just at the end, it makes a huge difference. And so how come somebody that is flushing it on the range, just pure strokes, like they're feeling super confident, they get to the first tee and they lose it all? And the only thing that happened is they didn't lose their swing walking from the practice range to the tee box. It's just stress. And so the environment changed. And so going back to what you were doing earlier with those players, well, that's a great way to test the resilience. And resilience is how much stress can you endure. And so obviously there is two components into stress management, I would say: the ability to endure high levels of stress and not break down, but also the ability to lower your state and get back to your zone that we always talk about, like being in the zone. What is it really? Is just being able to go back to your baseline level at which you hit great shots, and that goes to stress management. So those would be like the main two areas. And so some players, they just don't know how to properly manage stress and how to be prepared to perform under pressure. And there is a lot of players, unfortunately, that just don't know any better. I was that type of player. And the funny thing is, people were telling me, like, you must be stressed, but the way I pictured stress in my mind was not what I was experiencing. And it's just later on, as I went to college, graduated, and delved into mental golf type, that I realized, like, oh shoot, like, I'm actually stressed. It's just I wasn't aware that what I was feeling was stress. And so that completely changed my outlook on performance. And now, thanks to mental golf type, I'm better able to manage my own stress, but also teach people to manage their own stress, because we're all different. Like, how come two people be put in the same situation, one will be completely fine, the other one will be stressed out? It's not the situation that is stressful, it's the perception that we have of it. And that will change from a player to another.
Yeah, so let's dive into that. I mean, you literally stole the question off my sheet. I love that. So yeah, I mean, I was going to ask that same thing, right? Like, I play competitive amateur stuff, and it's the same tee box, it's the same tee shot on the first tee, it's the same guy announcing you, it's the same other three players saying, play well today. Like, why? What is the difference for some people that can do it and can't do it? Or, like, you mentioned, like, what you perceived as stress you didn't realize was stress. Like can you dive more into that for people? Because that is a completely unexplored area for most people listening right now.
Yeah, absolutely. So the way I was experiencing stress was very different. So for me, when I'm experiencing stress, I actually revert back to going into some technical things. And so basically, actually, I need to dive into mental golf type to better explain this.
Yeah.
So there is 16 different personality types, and that would be kind of like the way that a player operates from like an unconscious mind level. So this is not something that you can change. It's something that you have to learn to play with and playing up to your strength. And so on the second layer of the mind, you've got the subconscious mind, and this is where kind of like the software, that would be your routine, your processes, and everything. And so if you have good software, but it's not designed for the operating system, you're going to run into some bugs. And this is exactly what was going on with me. I just didn't have the right softwares. And so once I realized, like, oh shoot, these are not the right things I should be doing, thanks to mental golf type, then I changed my process, and I was able to recognize when I was going from using kind of like the right software and the software that was running into stress. And so to me, the way it showed up is I'm a player that is very, I make decisions kind of like in the now when I'm playing. And so when I try to kind of structure everything too much, almost like overly prepare, I run into like some blocks. Also, I get, when I get stressed, I get very technical, and I completely get lose sight of my target. And I'm a player that actually just naturally reacts to the target and trusts the swing. And so when I get stressed, I get technical and I go more what we call player side. I completely forget about my target side. And so under stress, and because I had the wrong software, actually without stress, I can run the softwares pretty easily, because I don't run into just too much brain activity. But now you have more stress, you have more brain activity, just the system's going to crash. So you have to go back to something that is in favor of your natural strength. And so basically that's kind of like the way that led me to play better. So now obviously I'm coaching, so I'm not playing as much. My swing is nowhere near as good as it used to be. Same on the physical side. I grew older, so obviously a little bit more stiff and all of that you can imagine. But I'm still able to shoot the scores that I was shooting in college and as a junior golfer, but not because of my physical ability, because of my mental ability now. And so hopefully that answers your question. I think I kind of lost track of it.
Yeah, no, but I'd be really curious. There's 16 different just kind of core types that it sounds like you're more predisposition to one than the other. Are there like top 3 most common ones, or is it pretty evenly distributed around golfers? What do you see?
It's not evenly distributed. And so maybe that could explain why I struggle too, because so based on we've got more than like 50,000 people have taken the test, and so based on all of the people who have taken the test, only 1% is my type. So I'm a INTP. And so that could be why I was struggling, because basically the classical way of going about things and the way that I was taught through my coaches just wasn't working for me, and I could not explain why. And so these are some issues that I run into early in my coaching career, because how come I could be successful with some players and teaching the same thing, the same protocols, the same system to other players, and not being able to connect at all and not having any results. And so thankfully to Instagram and the algorithm, I found Golf Player Secrets. I found mental golf type, and that run into my life, and now it's helping me both as a coach and as a player, and it's even like translating into things in my personal life as well. So it's not evenly distributed. Some of the most common types in golf, you would have like almost like 15% players. Like I believe ISTJ is 15%. I think ENFPs, it's close to like around 13-14%. So I don't have the exact numbers in mind.
Well, so if we stay with those two, like what do those letters mean? Like people are like, I'm an NTF. Like what is that? Right? Like so what does that mean? And then how to, like, if we just use those two as examples, just to give people context of what that'd be awesome.
Absolutely. So ISTJs and ENFPs, they're exact opposites. So that's perfect. Great example. And so basically there are 4 facets of personality. You've got one that is your mental energy. So this is how you behave, how you interact with people, and you're either extroverted or introverted. So extroverted people, a lot more outgoing, a lot more social, a lot more talkative. Introverted players, a lot more quiet. A lot more minding their own business sort of mentality. Again, it's a spectrum. It's not black or white. So you could be like 80%, 20%. But you have to figure out what your preference is. And once you know this, you can start building your systems around it. So if you ask an extroverted player that is usually very talkative to all of a sudden be quiet and just do your thing, do not speak to anyone, like this is what I was taught like as a young kid, like you shouldn't be speaking to your playing partners, you should be doing your own thing. Like that was the way golf was taught in my club. And there were some kids, I'm an introvert, so that worked for me. There are some kids who are very talkative. That is draining their energy. So when you're, for that first facet, as an introvert, being very talkative, very much engaging with the environment, you get more easily distracted by what's going on. That is taxing in energy. Extroverts, when they become internal, head goes low, they go, internal, kind of like in that little introspection bubble, that is wasting a lot of energy as well. And so at some point throughout the round or throughout the tournament, you're going to run into mental energy breakdowns, and you're going to make a poor decision. You're not going to be alert to what's going on around you and make a poor judgment or something like this. So that would be the first facet.
Interesting. And so that would be why, like, so an introvert would not necessarily love playing with a high spectrum extrovert. So the high spectrum extrovert's going to think, wow, that guy's a jerk. And the introvert's going to be like, this guy won't shut up. And so I can see where there would be clashes there.
Exactly. And so, that's very interesting dynamic. And so when I'm coaching groups, like I like to put the introverts and extroverts separated into kind of like subgroups. But then if I want to challenge them, I put them together. And now we're having some fun.
That's awesome. Cool. Well, then where do we go from there? So we got introvert, extrovert, and then what's the next one?
Then you get perception. So that's the way that you're going to be focusing over the ball. So that's the one that had the most wrong as I was playing competitive golf. So you've got the sensors and you've got the intuitives. And so sensors, they're very detailed oriented, very step-by-step process type. They're very much more player-sided. So if you watch the routines, you'll see these players, they spend very little time looking at their target. Like if you watch, for example, Tiger's routine, it's just one quick look. And then it's all in here, in his player side, in his hands. If you look at Xander Schauffele, same thing. Just one or two quick looks, all here. And so these guys are more like player-sided. They're more, they do better with a process. Like I line up to my intermediate target, and I execute this one concrete action, which could be anything for them. It could be a swing thought, a swing key. It could be more of like a sensory cue. So maybe, a feel through the ball. It could be more of like a kinesthetic feel. So maybe something like, balance, tempo. It could be something visual, like looking at the intermediate target, kind of like drawing a line from the ball to the intermediate target, looking tightly at the ball, a specific dimple. So those are the sort of focuses that will help the sensors. And then you've got the intuitives. And so these guys, they're a lot more target oriented. So they play better when they're in front of their ball, but their mind's eye is to the target. So the way I like to image this is, imagine you're looking at your ball, but you have a third eye that is, looking through your ear at that target and kind of like holding this connection. Again, you'll see in the routine they spend a lot longer looking at the target and connecting to the target, and they trust they can react to it. So again, it's a balance. It's usually like a 80-20 ratio. So as a sensor, you're still going to have 20% of target awareness just to see and situate yourself. For an intuitive, you're still going to have 20% of player-sidedness to make sure that you have a proper setup. But so those would be the main two differences in these two types. And it's very interesting to see like what happens under pressure. Well, the sensor will now go from like very narrow focus to this wide focus and seeing all of the danger, and they get distracted by this. So now they're in front of their ball, they see the water, they see the out of bounds, they see the trouble, they see
nothing good's coming from that.
Exactly. They see like the worst possible outcome, and they completely lose track of their process. Intuitives on the other end, like now they're like, oh boy, like I've missed it, twice on the left side on the last two holes. Oh, there must be something here, and they go technical. And so from the research, when you're going against your natural strength, it creates more brain activity, which just kind of like, overload everything. And this is when you get kind of like, those negative thoughts. This is when you get distracted and you're not in your flow state anymore. So we know that flow state is alpha brainwaves. When you get into stress, with more brain activity, you go into better brain waves. And so what happens now is that when you're using your least developed function, so I don't like to call them weaknesses, but they're just least developed function, it requires just more mental energy input from you, more brain activity. You pair that with the competitive stress, you see performance breakdown. If there is no stress, very little, pressure, it may work. So that's why it works on the range, but it breaks down under pressure.
Interesting. So if you have somebody who's an introvert, I guess self-focused or sensor, right? So that person's going to do really, really well playing with someone else who's not talking with them. And they're going to do, or easier for them to play well with that situation. And if they're not worried about the water left, the sand right? But they will break down, or it will be harder for them if they're playing with somebody who's always chirping in their ear, who's wanting to have a big conversation. And then they start thinking about water left, I want to try to shape it this way, and then now I've screwed it up. All right, now I got to go technical or whatever it may be. And so that's where you're saying when there's those mismatches, it just can kind of snowball, I would imagine. Any golfer listening knows the feeling of the snowball. It ain't good.
Yeah, that's right. Like it all, like it's this vicious cycle of like it feeds into it, and it just creates more and more stress, and just more body tension, more brain activity. We're just not able to clearly focus. But yeah, so especially like, if you've got a very introverted player, you pair it you pair them with a very talkative player, it could be difficult, it could be challenging. So now we teach ways to kind of like, fight through this, and help you get more centered. And for the same thing, for the extroverts that are playing with people that are quiet, we teach them way to stay external. So you'll see like extroverts, when they're playing great on the golf course, they have like this kind of like confident body language, looking up, and usually the energy follows the eyes. So if you have your eyes down, more likely internal. If you have your eyes up at horizon level or above, you're most likely external. Now, if maybe you have somebody that is extroverted in your playing group, look at how that might change as their performance decays over the round. Like you could see like the extroverts will go down like this, and they're very internal. Like
I'm already thinking about a couple of my buddies who are super extroverted. They start making some big numbers or get behind in the match. Their head is down. They take their bag off the cart and they walk on the opposite side of the fairway to nobody to talk to them.
Exactly.
I 100%. And anyone listening, I know you're thinking about your buddy when he totally flips.
And this is exactly the wrong thing to do. Because now they get internal, they stop talking out loud, but they talk to themselves, and usually that talk is not something you want to listen to.
No.
And so that actually pulls them more down.
Yeah, so that would explain. So when I was started playing competitively, I thought I had to prepare, and keep to myself and stay focused. And I found that by the 16th hole, I was exhausted. And so then what I found strategy-wise is, hey, I'm gonna quiet down or when I'm over the ball, I go through my process. I am focused, and I actually started to use I used my glove. If it was undone, I could talk to people or whatever. But as soon as I put it on, it was amazing how much fresher I felt at the end of a round, and obviously I played better too, which was kind of cool. So, what you're saying is what I'm understanding is I clearly had a mismatch, and then I had to kind of figure out what my balance was, and that sounds like what a lot of people need to do.
Yeah, absolutely. So your job in between shots is to recharge, and so by having this kind of trigger with the glove, you were creating the right environment for you to recharge. But if you were staying internal, it's actually very much you're taxing a lot of energy, mental energy. And I used to have a Whoop, and it was very interesting looking at the stress data and the energy consumption from a practice round, casual round to a tournament round. And that usually, sometimes it would double, and most of the time it would be at least 30% higher. But you're doing the same thing, you're walking the same course, you're with the same guys. What is going on? It's just competitive pressure. And so if you do not manage that well, both from a physical perspective, because you have to hydrate, you have to eat well, you have to prepare well, sleep well, but also from a mental perspective, you're going to run out of gas at some point. For you, it happened on the 16th. For some players, it may happen at the turn. For some players, it would be fine for one round, but a 2, 3 days, 4 days event, that becomes very difficult to manage.
They're toasted. Yeah. So all right. So this is super interesting. So then where do we go? What's the third letter? Yeah.
Third one is about decision making. And so you've got the thinkers and you've got the feelers. And so the thinkers, they're very much more analytical. A lot more logical. So they like data. They like numbers. They like making decisions that make sense. And this is the right way to go because the numbers are telling me. So usually the way they would go about decision making is they look at, okay, what are my options and what is logical out of those options. Then out of those logical options, they pick the one that feels the most they're able to do in the moment. And then there is a last step of logical checks, okay, does it make sense to do it now? So that's sort of the process. The feeders, they're a lot more emotionally intelligent. So for them, it's extremely important to pick a shot that they feel comfortable with. Comfort is the number one priority. Feeling comfortable, feeling confident they can hit the shot is the number one priority. So that's the way they go. They go what is comfortable for me here? Out of those options, what makes sense, and then the last emotional check. So a feeder that is in front of their ball and they feeling this kind of stress in their stomach, or they're feeling I don't know if I've got it, they should pull out and restart the routine, reassess. The thinkers, what happens when they get stressed is very interesting. Now they go from being very smart and logical to being emotionally clouded, and so they take too much risk, they make stupid decisions. I mean, I've been there. That was
they're on tilt. They just doubled and they're just going flag hunting now.
Exactly. They go flag hunting because they just missed out an opportunity for birdie. They feel like they gotta chase it now, and they just compound. They follow usually a bad shot with a stupid decision. So that's the thinkers under stress. And the feeders, well, they don't trust their emotions anymore, and they become overly analytical. And so now they got this sort of like paralysis by overanalysis, and they just second guess themselves a lot. Whereas usually they're pretty good to making judgment and following their judgment very quickly. But under stress, they just second guess themselves, and their attitude becomes a lot more poor. So yeah, those would be the main differences.
Yeah, it sounds like, and basically the one consistent trend I'm seeing is when you're stressed, you will tend to do the opposite of what you need to do, should be doing, or what works best for you. So,
exactly.
So basically, if we are feeling stressed, like we feel like we're going down the toilet, we basically should just say, all right, what is everything I'm doing right now? Am I talking or am I quiet? Do the opposite. Am I thinking or feeling? Do the opposite. Literally, stop doing what you're doing as you're going down the, spiraling down, and it's probably kind of where you should be. Is what it sounds like ends up happening.
This sounds like we've got a 3-step process to help you get back into your peak performance zone and out of your stress mode. And so that 3-step process will look something like, okay, pick yourself back up and activate some good body language, because physiologically better body language will already lower the cortisol levels. It will lower the overall stress that you're feeling. So you start with the body language. Anybody can do this. It doesn't cost anything. Like really, it's the lowest hanging fruit. Second, now you want to create a relaxation response, and you want signal to your brain like, hey, everything's fine, let's just relax. And so this is where you're going to do a relaxation breath. And so a relaxation breath would be, usually it's a deep inhale with a slow and soft exhale. And so you want your exhale to be longer than you inhale, and that will create a physiological relaxation response. And then you get to the third step, which is now assess what is wrong based on your mental golf type, and do what you're supposed to do. So for a thinker, it would be going back to making smart, simple choices. For a feeder, it would be, all right, let's pick myself back up, and let's trust my guts, really. For a sensor, it would be, all right, let's refocus on the process and follow this one concrete action that is trusted. It's something that I've worked on before. So each have their own like unique things to do, but you can only get there with heightened self-awareness and being able to realize like, oh shoot, I'm actually stressed. And so the first step before even all of those steps would be learning about your mental golf type, learning about what your peak performance state look like, and then being able to recognize when you start to shift. And so the first step in all progress is self-awareness.
For sure. That's so cool. So let's, I think everyone's on the cliffhanger now. What's the fourth one?
So the fourth one would be about your structure. So how do you get things done in your life? And so you've got the judgers. And so these guys, very organized. They love having a schedule. They love having and following a schedule. They're extremely organized. So if you look usually at their yardage books, a lot of notes, game plan is decided in advance, and so for them to play their best, they need to feel prepared. Like being prepared, being on time, those are things that are extremely valuable for a judger. And so I advise judgers to make as much decision making before the round, and then going out and applying this. And so the only decision making a judger should be making out there is obviously like the in the now things. So they know the distances they want to hit, but how are the conditions today? Maybe that will change. So ideally, that's what you want to do. Obviously, sometimes things don't happen as planned, but the key there is,
I would imagine like lie or rain or wind. That's what you're referring to, the conditions, right?
Yeah, exactly. And so that would be the judgers. And so for them to be efficient in their training, and that would work also with the players that you work with on the physical side, like having a precise session and having them follow it is going to bring them extreme comfort, and they're going to feel like they're getting something done. The perceivers, on the other hand, these guys, they're a lot more kind of like go with the flow, and so with them, it's what the way they get things done is if there is a deadline. If there is no deadline, they're not working. So they need to be sort of like pressure prompted, and so they often are perceived as unorganized. It's just that they get things done differently. So for them, what would work better is kind of like a overall to-do list with a deadline. Like I need to finish this to-do list by this day, and so as you know the week goes by, I'm just selecting, okay, what do I feel like doing today? This thing, this thing, this thing, this item, knock them off and go out. So for them when training, you kind of like want them to have a practice menu, and so these are all the things they're supposed to do, and when they get to the range or to the training ground, they get to do whatever they feel like doing. And but at the end of the week, there is a deadline, and everything on that list should be done. So that's the way they go. And so what is interesting is what happens again under stress. So you'll have the judges, they'll feel like all of that effort for nothing. They'll take their game plan, throw it out the window, start improvising, and this is when things start going poorly for them. And you've got the perceivers will feel like, well, I'm not getting enough out of my game. I need more structure. But the structure will kind of like kill their motivation, kill their sense of like creativeness and that sort of thing. So I'm a perceiver. I was never able to follow a workout regimen. If it was just too perfect, like Monday 8 a.m. I do this. Tuesday at 4 p.m. I do that. Like if it's too organized, too scheduled in advance, I just lose momentum at some point, and I just lose interest in it. And so I had to trick myself, and the only way I was able to be consistent with my workout regimen was those little 2 deadlines. One, I have to work out 3 times a week at least, and another one, I cannot go more than 72 hours without working out. And so at some point I'm hitting one of those 2 deadlines, so I'm either pressure prompted to do it, or I get the freedom and flexibility to do it whenever I want. So if I want to do an 8 a.m. session, I'll do an 8 a.m. session. If I want to do it in the evening, I'll do it in the evening. But perceivers, they don't like to be tied down to very, specific, organized things. So if you want them to be successful, you need to allow for some flexibility.
Wow, this is so interesting. So, and I think when we were talking prior, I do want to be respectful of your time here too. I know you mentioned that there was an assessment, and that there was a way for people to take. Because I think anyone listening right now, a lot of our audience is very analytical, likes data. It's a big thing what we do. So the idea that there is an assessment they can take, there is, you've beautifully outlined kind of the different, just top level, kind of giving people ideas of where they may fall. Obviously, there's spectrums in taking the assessment. I'm assuming kind of gives you more insight in terms of exactly where you are. What's the best way for them to get that assessment? And and we'll obviously put any links in the show notes as well too.
Yeah, absolutely. So you can go to the Mental Golf Type website, and we have a mental fitting section, which is a quiz that you answer. It's very important that you answer the questions honestly, and not as what I wish I was doing, but what you actually are doing. And so that's one important component, but you'll see there is instruction on how to take the quiz effectively. It takes like 15-20 minutes, and once you're done, you will receive your results by email. So that's the way to do it. And as I was telling you earlier, for any player that takes the test, if you want to send me out your results, and we can get on a quick call, and I'll explain to you exactly what that means for you, and I'm happy to do that for your listeners.
That's amazing. That's super generous. And what's the so you guys? I just went to the mentalgolftype.com.
Yep.
There's a big button that just says "Discover your mental golf type."
Exactly.
Click it.
Yep.
And then immediately you can say "Start your mental fitting." So very easy to go to. We'll put that link in the show notes. And then Julien, what's the best way once they kind of go through that for people to get connected with? I know you got some great stuff on the Golf Player Secrets Instagram handle. Anywhere else, or is that the best place for them to go? What's the best place?
Just go to the Golf Player Secrets Instagram page. Shoot us a screenshot of your results, and we'll hook you up with a little session.
Awesome. Well, hey Julien, thank you so much for coming on. It's been awesome having you on, and I always love learning. I always joke selfishly I have all our guests on so that I can learn, and so you have fulfilled my bucket today for learning. So thanks so much for coming on. It's been an honor having you, and I'm sure we'll have you on again at some point soon. But everybody else, thanks so much for listening. As always, we really appreciate you taking some time to hang out with me here on the Golf Fitness Bomb Squad. We took a little bit of a detour today to the brain, but guess what? The body doesn't work without the brain, and no matter how many squats you can do, if you're focused on your inside body self when you should be focused on target or vice versa, you're screwed. So yeah, listen to Julien. Go check it out. And Julien, thanks again for coming in, on the show. I appreciate it.
Well, thank you so much, and maybe next time we can get your type.
Oh, I'm immediately going there, brother. You're getting a message. Don't you worry. So, all right, everybody, thanks so much for hanging out with me here at the Golf Fitness Bomb Squad, and we'll catch you on the next episode.